So they seen the third triple play that the Twins ever, that's the third triple play they've had.
It's a 13th in team. I saw something that says a 13th in team history, but I had 2 in one game.
Yeah, I know, I seen the 2-1 game, I thought that was the ones.
So, I mean, it might have been reading something else.
We,
Like 19 now. So. Yeah, you know, he's only his catcher about 60% of the time.
Between our two catchers, like,
Something like that. It's,
between our two catchers,
yeah,
crazy.
they're fun to watch. So.
we need Andy here, he would tell us right over.
What's that? Oh,
Andy would tell us.
all right.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hutchinson City Council for Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019. Approve the council agenda and any agenda additions or corrections.
Mayor and council, I have 2 corrections, sorry. So I'd ask you to remove item 4A and remove item 7C. We're just not ready for both of those at this time.
Great.
I'll make a motion to approve it with those changes.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the agenda with changes. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Invocation, we have none tonight, so we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have resolution number 15081, accepting donations from the Little Crow Archery Club for funds and labor to improve target frames and targets.
Mayor and council, the resolution kind of self-explanatory, but the Little Crow Archery Club put in a significant amount of sweat equity and even some of their finances and upgraded and improved the archery range over there at Oddfellows Park. So obviously want to thank them for the work that they did, for the effort they put into it, and obviously to acknowledge that donation.
They really look nice. We like passed them all the time. They're a lot more elaborate than the old ones, so
Really nice.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Chad, second by Steve to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Citizens addressing the council, please come forward, state your name and address. All right, approval of minutes, we have workshop of July 9th, 2019, and regular meeting minutes of July 9th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve both those.
Second?
Motion by Mary, second by Steve to approve the minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consent agenda. This will be done by one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. A is approval of reformation of the City of Hutchinson data practices policies. C is approval of pavement replay second application. D is approval of the 2019 lift station improvement construction. E is approval of letter of support for the McLeod County Dakota Rail Trail project. F is approval of temporary permit to construct for government entities Truck Highway 15 Main Street reconstruction project. G is approval of out-of-state travel request for Kent Exner to attend the 2019 National Local Technical Assistant Program LTAP Conference in Stowe, Vermont, from August 11th through the 15th of 2019. H was the approval of out-of-state travel requests for the city administrator, Matt Yannick, to attend the 2019 ICMA Annual Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, from October 20th through the 23rd, 2019. I is approval of resolution number 15078, a resolution approving preliminary and final plat for co-op subdivision with favorable planning commission recommendation. J is approval of resolution number 15080, resolution approving small city development program, rental rehab program, Southdale apartment project. K is approval of accepted of body worn camera audit. And L is claims appropriation and contract payments. Is there anything anybody wants pulled off?
Mayor and council, number J should be pulled up. We have a revised resolution.
So, I'd like, E and should K also be then?
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the balance.
I'll second.
motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the balance. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. E, Steve?
Yeah, this is a hard one for me because I want to support the county and I obviously want to support the trail getting done, but I just have some concerns on the application that the county's going to be proposing or to send in, and it's due August 2nd and the board doesn't meet again till after that, so there's not really time to do anything, but one is, when they applied, for legacy funds, one of the criteria is that it's a regionally designated trail or park. And so as part of that, they had to submit an application, their master plan that showed all those benefits. The county trail plan was part of that. And what really made it eligible to be regionally, have that regional designation was the paved trail to the east in Carver County and Hennepin County. And then coming through to Hutchinson and the link to the Loose Line Trail. And the assumption was that it would be paved also. Well, in the application, what they're proposing is a section to County Road 4 that would not be paved. They do talk about paving in the future, but there's no indication of when that would be. I'm sure that would catch the eye of Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails right there. But the other thing is, I was at a workshop a month or two ago and of the county board, and there was talk of maybe not even bringing it to Hutchinson because of some concerns like crossing Highway 22, the proximity to one of the properties, on the east side of 22 there, and so, but in the application that continues to talk about coming to Hutchinson and even shows a map with that being a future segment. And so I just think it's really important for the legacy program, for the accountability that, these grant agencies are under, that they follow what people are telling them they're going to do. And at this point, I'm not sure that's gonna happen, and, so that's troubling. So I would make a motion that we deny it because of that.
I would just echo from staff's standpoint, and I know Steve has some concerns, and I have some of those same concerns and what's being developed here and what's being proposed. We were simply asked to bring forward this letter of support. It was composed by county staff, I believe the consultant that's involved in putting together the grant application. And like Steve mentioned, I think the scope and the intentions of what's being proposed with this grant application came out of that county workshop a couple of months ago, and that was the simple direction that was provided to county staff, and that's what they've acted upon. So, yeah, I don't fault staff, but I'm a little disappointed with the approach. Like Steve mentioned, there's been a lot of work, from staff standpoint, the county trail committee, back to the master planning effort that was done by staff, and then the preliminary engineering effort that staff, coordinated with a consultant a year or two ago. So, yeah, it's a bit disappointing. It's going this direction, and this is what's being proposed at this point.
And I did share my concerns, with people at the county, so it's not like aware of it. And,
Well, I'll second your motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
I guess I would just hope, obviously want to see it continue, make no mistake about that.
Right.
But support that in the future.
All right, we have a motion by Steve, second by Chad, to deny the letter of support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, Jay?
Yeah, there was a typo in the original resolution that was included in your council packet. It included a be further resolved, kind of a copy and error, or copy and paste error, and so that's been removed. And so what's in front of you is a clean copy of the resolution with the correct language. So asking you to consider approval of that.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve resolution number 15080 with the correction. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. K.
Yeah, I guess, just reading the audit, there were two, discrepancies, was the
Yep.
word, right? So I just thought we should acknowledge that, and apparently the policy has been updated to address those, and,
Yep, and they all do have a copy of the.
Yes, so you should have received an emailed copy of the amended policy.
It is on their desk tonight, too.
And what you said is exactly correct. There was two minor discrepancies in in our policy that the auditor picked up on. To be honest with you, I'm pretty ecstatic that it came back with just those two minor discrepancies. More of just a minor overlook than anything else, and it was easily corrected. So, just a little bit of history. The audit goes into much more in depth than just looking at our policy. It's how we store our records, our retention schedule, if we're using it consistently per our policy, and all those things came back fine. So again, these two minor discrepancies have already been corrected, and it has been forwarded to the city service desk to be posted on the city's website. I'm not sure if that's actually been done as of yet, but should be here in the near future.
otherwise, program's working well.
Yeah, everything's working well. We just received an updated version. Everything works well there. As it's really streamlined the process for us. So I don't have any of the statistics as to how many terabytes of data that we've stored up until this point, but it's quite a bit, I know that. So there's nothing we'd be able to do on our own server.
Has it helped, you know, and
As far as we're concerned, it's been all positive. We have, to this point, and hopefully it continues to be that way, we have yet to find a case where the body camera footage has been negative towards the PD, so it's only helped. The nice thing about it too is it also, the public, when they see that you're wearing the camera, they act differently. Police officers are also more accountable because they're wearing it, and it helps resolve issues a lot quicker that way. So it's been 100% positive in my opinion.
Mark, Dave, isn't that,
Definitely, I mean, from the criminal prosecution standpoint, I mean, as the chief alluded to, you know, picture tells 1,000 words, and helps me when I'm evaluating cases, whether I should go forward with the prosecution or not. And, really does the job when you're showing that evidence in court, so.
thank you to the donors who really helped us.
Tom, before you sit down, do you want to just give a short little update on what's happening on August 1st with your phones and your cars?
I could try
So
and
the
bring that
public
paperwork with
has
me.
a heads up on that?
What Mary is referring to is the new hands-free legislation that goes into effect August 1st with your cell phones. I guess to oversimplify it, basically what it means is from August 1st going forward, unless you have Bluetooth or some other technology that allows you to use your cell phone hands-free, you cannot use it while driving or while driving in traffic, a motor vehicle. So that means any web-based application that you may have needs to be voice activated. So theoretically, you could be stopped driving down the highway. Now you can use your phone, just having it in your hand, that is technically a violation. Except in emergency situations. And there are certain exceptions for emergency vehicles as well.
So does that mean like if a police officer sees you with your phone in your hand, you're looking at it, and just write you a ticket right there?
They can certainly stop you, and then it would be up to their discretion whether or not they write the citation, but it certainly could be warranted, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
You bet.
thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the audit.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to approve the audit. Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Yeah, we'll jump up to number 9. Master Park Plan. Evening, Dolph. How are ya?
I'm great, how are you?
You had to get out early.
Yeah. Mayor and Council, after a one-year process, we're nearing the goal line on the Parks Rec Community Ed Master Plan. This evening we have Gabrielle Grindy, who is the lead coordinator of our project, who's met with the council on several occasions. She's going to give a synopsis of the one-year process that we've undertaken, and then would stand for any questions if the council has any. So, Gabrielle?
Can you help?
Thank you. So just a quick recap on the process that we've gone through over the past year. We've had several engagement touch points with the public, the park board, city council, and staff in the city. So the schedule shows that we've had events and engagement opportunities almost every month throughout the process. So for the public, we engaged the public by handing out flyers at the McLeod County Fair about a year ago. We had information on the Parks, Recreation and Community Education website throughout the past year. We had a survey online last fall and an interactive mapping application, which received over 1,000 responses combined between those two. We held stakeholder meetings earlier this year, and we had a public open house in January, where we presented some draft recommendations and received input on those goals and recommendations for Parks and Recreation. And then we also did some targeted outreach to youth in the high school and to seniors at the senior center. And then this spring, we had another survey to obtain feedback on the draft master plan recommendations, which received almost 300 responses. Then we engaged the PRCE board 4 times throughout the process, twice last year and twice earlier this year. So we had several items and components that we reviewed with the board, including trends in recreation, an inventory of the system, needs assessment. We summarized those all into key findings. We addressed the goals and policies from the last comprehensive plan. We came up with draft recommendations for the Parks and Recreation system, and we had a prioritization exercise, and then we reviewed the draft master plan. And then with the city council, we had 2 meetings with you to review some of our draft materials and products and get feedback on those items. Then we were involved with staff throughout the process. We had a kickoff last August, and we toured several of the park facilities. We had 2 workshops, one last fall and one this spring, where we met for a few hours to go over identity, mission, vision statements for the department, looking at some of the detailed products and materials that we were working on for the project. And then we had meetings, phone, and email check-ins throughout the process. So just a brief recap of what's included in the master plan. There are 5 chapters. The first chapter is an introduction and overview of the system and includes the identity and mission statement for the department. Chapter 2 includes an inventory of what's in the system, the parks, the trails, the recreation programming. Chapter 3 includes a summary of what's missing. It's the needs assessment. We include a summary of the issues and opportunities that were discovered from conversations with staff and the public, and then some of the constraints that are limiting any further improvements in the system. Chapter 4 is really the vision plan. It has detailed recommendations for the entire system of recreation and parks. And then Chapter 5 includes detailed action plans and strategies with cost estimates and tools to help the city implement the vision. And then there are 3 appendices that have some more detail to supplement the information within the master plan. So just want to reiterate the next steps for the city is to keep engaging the community. This should be a living document that doesn't just sit on the shelf. You should make sure that the community is aware of the recommendations and reevaluate those priorities and make sure that that's what the community wants to see, and maybe reorder some of the priorities as issues or opportunities arise in the coming years. And then the implementation chapter is really what will be useful for implementing improvements in the city.
Like that photo.
So, yeah, and there's an image to help inspire you for making things happen. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and look forward to any future opportunities to work with the Parks and Recreation Department.
Once again, Mayor and Council, as noted, this is a living, breathing document. It's meant to help, obviously, elected officials in making decisions, to help inform the public on kind of what our vision is for the future. It's a tool for our staff to focus and prioritize things. At the end of the day, all this still needs to come in front of the council, and so there might be things in here that you think are crazy or is well down the list. It's just because you approve the plan doesn't mean that it's an automatic go on something, but it's really meant for a document. Like I said, a lot of this will be implemented into CIPs, into future budgets, and there'll be more affirmative action on project-specific things as they make their way to the council.
Just wanted to thank staff and Gabrielle for, your willingness to take suggestions and incorporate them, and even changing some of the photos. But I mean, so much every step of the way. You've been listening, you take notes and try to, work things. And I think the community engagement, it's really a model, this project, I think, for us going forward on other things that we might want to do. I mean, it was really great, and I think the outcome, shows that too. So, Dolph and
Yeah, maybe
staff
just,
and Gabrielle, great.
In conclusion, we will be posting it, provided that you approve it or accept it. We'll be posting it on the city website so the community will have access to it. There'll be some printed copies that we'll get to the city hall, and we'll locate them, maybe one at the public library, probably one with the school system or at City Hall. I think the nice thing about the process, and I think you alluded to it, was the community participation all along the way. I think everyone's ears were open to the suggestions, and they were all incorporated into the document. But again, as Matt indicated, it's only going to be as good as it gets utilized. And there's a lot of things in the document that staff will be able to utilize on an ongoing basis. And there's some big overarching things that the community may need to consider in the future. And there'll be additional dialogue surrounding those items. It isn't just something that, we're going to pull a rabbit out of our hat. There's going to be conversation and discussion, and the community's going to be engaged along the way.
And I think just along that line, and when it does get posted, if people see, the vision, especially some of those facilities and the pictures that are shown, those are concepts, but it just helps start sparking imagination, about what might be possible. And
And one of the things too that we've talked about, we've got a rich history in town of community support of, parks being sponsored by somebody that, there might be an opportunity that somebody sees that says that's something I want to jump on board and pursue.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the park plan.
I'll second that.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to approve the master park plan. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Jump up to 10. Ordinance number 19-802, ordinance to rezone property at 477 and 479 Highway 7 East from R2 medium density residential to 11 light industrial LL, is that?
I-1 industrial.
I-1, okay. Yeah, I put my glasses back on so I can see it.
Okay.
Light industrial park as requested by Dello LLC property with favorable planning commission recommendations, first reading.
Yes.
Good evening, Dan.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor, city council members. You had approved the plat for this project earlier this evening on the consent agenda to basically combine all of these remnant parcels together into one. And part of that was these front pieces here, you can see right down here in the south end, actually zoned residential. The driveway had always been obviously used to access this property. So in order to clean that up, we're recommending that that be rezoned to I-1 to be consistent with the larger parcels at 479 and 481. And then that would allow a parcel that would have all of that zoning to have access to the public right of way. So with that, if there's no further questions, I would recommend approval.
What is it? There's that little dotted line there. Is it just that thin sliver, basically? It was kind of hard to see.
Which one you
Or-
talking about,
Which
Steve? The
dotted
one
line?
between-
On the Oh,
Way on the
yeah,
bottom?
so, yeah, way on the bottom where Dan
Right by
was
Highway
showing.
7?
Yeah,
Let me show you a better graphic. That's,
both of
There you
them,
go.
that's
both
the area
of them,
that's being rezoned
okay.
with, that's highlighted. That little strip there was a 7.5 foot wide piece, and then there was also a 7.5 foot wide easement to this neighbor's property. The property owner acquired another 24 feet along the west side in order to have a more appropriately sized driveway.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you very much.
Yep. We'll go back to the public hearing. Assessment hearing and project awards for South Grade Road Corridor Improvements Project, letting number 2, project number 19-02.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Like the Mayor Forcier mentioned, we're here considering our South Grade Road improvements, or South Grade Road Corridor Improvements Project. Up on the screen here is the bid tabulation that's included within your packet. And I touched on this a fair amount in the board action form with respect to the amount of the two bids that were received back on July 3rd. Obviously, they were a fair amount higher than our final engineer's estimate. Our original program number was 1.9 million going into the project, so our estimate actually deviated downward from there. And I think that's reflective of the bidding environment we're in, the time of year, some unknowns on the contractors' front. Obviously, the weather hasn't been overly friendly to contractors in delivering the work that they've already had under contract. So delivering this project towards the tail end of this construction season, it presented some challenges, I think, from a contractor standpoint. And in the end, we did receive two bids, one from R&R Excavating here in Hutchinson, and then Donick Incorporated over in Princeburg, Minnesota. They were very, very close, about $19,000 apart. The parallel bid is about 22% over the final estimate number, and like I said, I believe our estimate going into this didn't fully account for the piecemeal nature of the work, some of the specialty work that's involved, and then also, like I said, just the time of year and some of the dynamics that are playing out this construction season. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions with respect to the bid tabulation.
What's the plan to make up the difference, and how does that fit in with our overall?
The overall program?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question, Steve. Yeah, we met at Resource Allocation Committee a few weeks ago, and delivering this project in Fifth Avenue this year, they're both state aid eligible projects, so we're gonna utilize our state aid funds, like to a large degree. We're utilizing $1 million on Fifth Avenue, and then we'll utilize $800,000 on this project. We also have the approximately $740,000 in grant funding associated with this project. Assessments are fairly limited on both of those projects. That's why we're leveraging our state aid dollars to a large degree on both of those. However, we're in a position state aid wise and looking towards next year with respect to Highway 15 Main Street. We'll receive our full allotment next year, and we'll have $800,000 to $900,000 in the bank going into next construction season. And then lastly, we won't deliver project or a pavement management program project this year.
Okay.
So what we've decided is down by the rec center, the Linden Park Pond, next year we're gonna hopefully do the major pipe work on both sides of the rec center, the east and west sides. We were gonna try to do the east side this year and the west next year, get the major pipes in the ground, and then pick up some of those other streets in the out years, but next year we'll just try to get the pipes in the ground on both sides, address those streets, and then pick up some of the other neighborhood streets, off in 21, 22.
And I'll just add, I asked Andy the question regarding our bonding. If we were to approve this project tonight, we'd be looking at bonding just over $2 million, which is about 107,000 over our target. But Andy's not concerned. Our plan is we try to do, when you look at your plan, is to have that average be 190. So we were $50,000 under in 2017. Nice thing is that we're looking at interest rates again back to our 2016 level, which we were under 2% with some of the Fed rate cuts. And so, he feels comfortable that even though we'll be slightly over our target of 1.9, that it's not going to cause a detriment long term, especially with really the one project that's scheduled next year. And so it might be something might be under 1.9 somewhere in the future, but there's not a concern, at least from staff standpoint, of being able to meet the obligations.
And that's basically the project next year, is those pipes and around Linden, or?
Yeah, so the pavement management program project next year with those stormwater utility dollars coming into that to do the pipe work, and then obviously Main Street, Highway 15 and our participation in that
Oh, yeah.
project. Yeah, so, yeah, it's basically gonna be a 2-project show next year, we envision.
Do we even know what, do we have a better idea yet about Main Street, or when you start
Yeah.
looking at numbers?
Yeah,
and-
we're getting there. Like we talked recently here, the contaminated soils and groundwater issue is the big unknown at this point in time. We just recently adjusted our sanitary sewer and water plans that city staff is developing to account for those issues, and that brought an uptick. We had to change our pipe types and special gaskets in those pipes to, account for the contamination and the long-term viability of the pipes. So costs are definitely going up on that end, albeit like we've talked quite a bit at the Citizen Advisor Group and Resource Allocation Committee is, our participation in the overall project outside of that, I think is going to be pretty favorable, other than our sanitary sewer and water, system contributions. So, no, I think we're sitting just fine.
Thank you.
Yep. Otherwise, quickly, assessments, we've gone through our regular project process with all the adjacent property owners. We've had a fair amount of recent conversations with respect to corner credits up and down this corridor, and how it might be favorable for those property owners to be assessed on the South Grade Road side of their lot versus their possibly their short side, their side street side of their lot going forward. So we've tried to look out for property owners and assess them in a manner that's beneficial to them for the long term. We are just assessing at our mill and overlay rate for this entire corridor, so I believe it's at a $28.50 per front foot rate. So we haven't heard a whole lot on that front. We've had quite a bit of discussion with the adjacent business owners on the east end of the project down by Highway 15. What we hear from those people has been very favorable with respect to the assessments and the scope and approach of the project. So we're pleased with that. We have a little bit more work to be done with some of those property owners gathering some easement rights and such going into the project. Yeah, but I don't think there's anything too serious on the horizon there. Otherwise, in front of you this evening, and this is following up our discussion at the last council meeting, is basically a recap of the project process put together by SRF Consulting. And as requested, MnDOT and SRF have representatives here this evening. If there's any questions of them, process-wise, approval-wise, they're more than happy to address those. But I believe SRF did a fine job, putting this together. We did get it out to you guys via email yesterday afternoon, I believe, and Yeah, I think it really shows all the moving parts that have been involved in developing this project and really looking at it from a corridor standpoint, starting east of the intersection, you know, adjacent to Walgreens there, and going all the way to Dale Street with respect to the trail improvements, and then obviously the intersection dynamics in between. So with that, that is all I have for you this evening, unless there's any other questions.
We'll open it up for public comment.
What is the proposed start date on this?
Oh, ma'am, no, you didn't come forward and, name and address, please.
We gotta make sure you
You,
get you on TV.
you gotta get up so we can see you on TV.
Hi, Kelly Pierce, Anytime Fitness owner. When is the proposed start date on this?
Yeah, we will be, what we've specified is I think it's the last day of the pool being open is the 26th. I believe Monday's the 27th of August.
Okay,
That's what we've specified. We've had conversations with the contractor about them possibly starting early on some removal work that doesn't impact the roadway, maybe a week or two in advance of that.
okay,
But we want to primarily respect the city's aquatic center and the access to it, obviously, along South Grade Road. We wanted to wait until the project approval occurred, and hopefully that's this evening. And then we'll be reaching out to property owners, and I think what we're gonna have primarily to address the business owners on the east end is basically a project pre-construction meeting, open house.
okay,
Really to touch base with you and other businesses, but also property owners to the west, prior to
Perfect.
any work beginning. So you should be seeing something on that front next few days.
okay, wonderful. Thank you, that's all I had.
Any other comment?
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We do have two resolutions under there. We have resolution number 15082, resolution adopting assessments, and resolution number 15083, resolution accepting bid and awarding contract.
Since the guests came, can I ask a few questions then?
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay.
No problem.
And again, I hope everybody understands I'm not opposed to roundabouts, mini roundabouts, or anything like that. Just, you know, with the proximity to this traffic light in the intersection. And
Steve, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Can we have you guys come forward and introduce yourselves?
yeah,
Yeah, I think Leif Garnis with SRF will be answering the
Okay.
majority of Steve's questions, I
All
believe.
right,
So,
thanks, Ken.
Leif's the guy. You can go right there, right here.
Yep.
All yours.
Like they said, you gotta get you on TV, right?
Sure. All right, well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Leif Garnis, I'm with SRF Consulting Group.
All right, thank you.
thanks.
All right, Steve.
Yeah, so, yeah, just the closeness to, and just looking back at some of the earliest reports, you know, there was talk about, like in 2040, it could be backing up 335 feet, which would be through the roundabout. As you noted in there too, you know, the current alignment would back up quite a ways too, almost that same bit. So, you know, just as far as with backing up, you know, and stacking, you know, are there issues more with roundabouts when that happens versus a standard intersection? I know you can potentially lock up the roundabout if, and it's all situational, I'm sure, when who's in the roundabout at the time when some of the other cars are trying to access it. But again, just trying to understand that dynamic.
Right, so we wouldn't anticipate, you know, any major locking up concerns compared to a roundabout compared to what it is today. A lot of times where we see intersections where, you know, queues do or stacking does back up through those intersections, we put up signs say do not block the intersection. People disobey those as well. So we see the roundabout as the safer option in that case, where it really limits those conflict points.
I think the other thing, Steve, and we talked about this as we're developing the model and some of those, like you said, during peak times, what started to evolve out of the model and really the traffic projections. And that's really what I struggle with a little bit, and we had conversations with SRF is, I don't know if we see traffic increasing in that area, unless something dramatically different happens, maybe to the mall, but the mall area and such, but to the west, I can envision it in the relatively near future. So I think, I always went back to that. I think what the traffic we're seeing today is more than likely the traffic extreme we're gonna see in the future. And I think I shouldn't say this, but I think it's a reality in the retail world, what's happening even on the grocery front. And, you know, I think there will be less people possibly migrating to that area over time, but.
Well, we already have another store that happened that, you know, to the south there that's reducing some of the numbers here,
Yep.
so.
No, but, you know, that's why I didn't want to rely on the typical, you know, traffic projections from a traffic engineering standpoint that are oftentimes very conservative, you know, as you start to model things, because I don't know if I see that happening in this area over time.
You could see maybe the 1% just with growth of the community over time, you know, hopefully. You know.
Yeah, no, I understand in general, but, you know, I think, you know, you got the destination aspects, and then you got, I think what's gonna happen to, you know, vehicular traffic over time, you know, and some people argue that's gonna change dramatically in the not too distant future, so I just defaulted to not wanting to, you know, be ultra conservative with the traffic projections. Go back to.
Another thing was, you know, and one of the justifications was better roadway alignment and the geometry, lane alignment. Can you know, since Kent has that up there,
Yep.
Are we really talking about on the east side of 15 or, you know, through the whole section there?
Yeah, essentially it's starting on the east side of 15 and all the way through the entire section. The one thing we noticed, the way it is today, with the left turns into Cashwise Foods and how that alignment is as you're looking towards the west is a little bit unconventional as far as their ability to see the vehicles coming at them in the other 3 lanes that I believe are there. And so this allows us to essentially reduce the amount of pavement that's out there and really get rid of the unnecessary pavement that we see and ultimately improve the alignment all the way through this section.
But
Then
it-
all the way to the east leg here, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, it's introducing that third dedicated lane there, so you have a right, a through, and a left. Then that ultimately helps get this through movement,
Yeah.
you know,
That will
as
help
straight
a
as
lot.
possible.
And now,
That there side's a problem once in a while, I'll
Yeah.
tell you that, but.
and that
Yeah.
was already talked
Yeah.
about even with the other renditions or options and.
Yep.
So again, getting back to the stacking here, you know, currently, we've got 2 lanes that go all the way through, you know, so it's the left turn lane and the straight through, and the left turn at 15 gets the most traffic, obviously, but still, we're losing space to absorb some of that stacking, and so that was another element of the concern, just as I've watched it over times, I've been down there even, like last week, I took off work, vacation to do some stuff, and I went through there around lunchtime, and, you know, there was build-ups actually happening then, and so again, just gets back to that concern with the stacking versus, and that's where it's different now because we have more space to absorb some of those cars.
Right, and as Kent mentioned, we did look at this, looking at several different growth scenarios, trying to understand what is that risk of stacking. You know, clearly there's some challenges today. We expect those challenges to continue. But what we're seeing is when, you know, we're really looking at those peak conditions where this could be a concern. But for the remaining hours of the day and throughout the year, we see this as a benefit to this stretch by cleaning up the geometry that's out there and reducing that.
I think the other thing that gets cleaned up is the functionality of the signal system. And I think what SRF arrived at and some of the dynamics that are occurring today aren't really, they're not the issue of South Grade Road, it's how the intersection handles the overall, the traffic, not only on Highway 15, but what's coming at it off of South Grade Road. So that signal system's been an issue for some time, and the functionality of that'll get cleaned up. With it being a completely new system, not only lights and poles and mast arms, but it'll be a completely new control box program provided by MnDOT.
Well, you not only have that section there, but if you just travel on down the road just a little bit on 15, and people are coming from Lynn Road onto 15, that can be a tough place too. You know, where you're coming up to the, get on, and sometimes you can't get in there, or if you're in that lane to turn off, you can't turn either.
Yeah, the southbound traffic stacks
Right.
at that signal.
Right.
So yeah, I think there's issues, and that's some of the things SRF, you know, as they built models and really studied the intersection, also there's some inherent issues with this intersection as it exists today that aren't of no fault to what's happening down here with our intersection or a roundabout being built there.
You have the human component in there too.
Yeah, that too, yes.
But then, so you know, one of the benefits usually with a roundabout is, you know, to help with accidents and lower accidents and the damage. But yet the model or the data shows there really isn't an issue with that. And then if we're thinking, well, the traffic probably is not going to increase a whole lot anymore, and kind of where's the benefit kind of thing. And so.
Right, so the time frame that we looked at, which is a typical time frame for the type of study that we did not see any major, you know, crash history, but the risks are here with the way it is designed today, and that's what we're really focusing on, is the risk that is there that could cause those crashes.
Yeah, that was over a 5-year period, is that correct?
Correct, that was over a 5-year period.
Which probably had even more traffic with some of the stores that weren't there and were there, you know, so.
Some time ago, yeah. And it's just from you realize the lack of crash history, actually, that's probably a good thing, you know, in reality, obviously, you know, you hate to drive your engineering decisions solely on crash history, so I think this is more looking forward in the investment into this portion of the South Grade Road corridor. And, you know, we looked at lane reconfigurations, and you'd be basically making the same monetary investment, and you would just have as many lanes, if not more lanes, is what we're looking at to do it, you know, right purely from a traffic engineering standpoint, and you still end up, you know, with this long left turn, and you still end up with a multitude of, you know, eastbound lanes of traffic evolving, coming at people looking to make movements, egress movements, exiting movements out of this area. And I think that was the primary concern. And then you know, really how you address this intersection, you know, to some degree drives, you know, obviously how the traffic signal is configured at Highway 15. So they go hand in hand, and if you didn't do something here to really improve the situation for the long term, I would recommend, you know, we would just leave it as is, and then that would walk away from the reconfiguration of, there'd be no need to reconfigure the traffic signal then.
When you were looking at options, I know you had the ones that were in your report. But did you even get a little wilder, if you want the word? I guess when I was starting to look at it and, you know, thinking about that left turn thing, and what if this was like a right out only from the mall, and the traffic to go west or north, you know, went at that west exit, if that was able to be acquired or something like that. Put a roundabout in down there where it's away from, but I don't know, if things like that were looked at, or even a roundabout on, at 15, does that help us? It takes out the traffic light element, and so just.
It would, I mean, that's a long ways from considering that, honestly, Steve.
Well, that was.
I think Todd would echo that, but, I mean, I think that is you know, that's it. You would have to look at the Highway 15 corridor as a whole. And honestly, we have access points not too far from the south here, and I think we've discussed this over the years, that the city agreed to close some time ago.
On the north there.
Yeah, and, you know, if you pay attention where those uncontrolled access points are, you know, and the businesses they would impact, you know, that wouldn't be a good thing. So, you know, if MnDOT were to start looking at roundabouts, I think you'd want to look at you'd look at the corridor as a whole, and unfortunately, from MnDOT's standpoint, they might be telling us those access points have to be closed. And the other thing that might evolve are some of the signals that were installed years ago even warranted per current traffic counts? So you gotta watch what you ask for, I guess, is the bottom line.
So.
I think a right hand only out of that parking lot would drive people insane. I think we'd hear definite feedback about that.
Yeah.
We did look at that. I forget exactly the reasoning, Leif.
Right, yeah, in our early discussions, we looked at several different options of, you know, not having the intersection here, but, you know, we start looking at the businesses on the north side and trying to minimize impacts to their access, and what it would take to put the roundabout at the intersection to the west, and how that lines with the mall parking lot and the impacts to all of the people walking in front of Cashwise. So a lot of those things we did talk about and looked at, and essentially landed on this was the most appropriate place, balancing all of these things, you know, safety risk, access, and traffic.
And I should mention, just for clarity, and we've talked about this, but we are working with Anytime Fitness. This access point will remain as just a right in. It will be configured in such a manner. And then we're looking at how they can maximize their upfront parking. So basically having just a pass through there so they can still utilize the parking up front. And then possibly, as we get a little deeper into that scenario with them and start talking about easements and property rights, we might convey a sliver here, a triangle, basically, of public right-of-way back to them. This really doesn't serve a purpose to the city anymore.
Don't want to mow that?
Excuse me?
Don't want to mow that little piece?
I think it'll be, there might be a sliver of grass in there, but I think it'll be black for the most part.
So the bottom line, you know, this is something that we're going to be having here, and one is, you know, if it doesn't work out real well, that doesn't make us look good, doesn't make you look good or MnDOT look good, but we gotta, you know, live with it then. So you're really comfortable in the analysis, and okay.
Yep, yeah, we're comfortable with this. Like I said, we looked at several different scenarios of, you know, increasing traffic, making sure that we're comfortable with it. You know, if traffic gets to a main, you know, the higher level that we talked about in our report, the 2% per year, essentially there are other problems that arise that are not even a result of this particular question. So I think
We have
that's
we have a MinDOT rep, Todd, right?
Todd Broadwell, District 8 State Aid Engineer.
Okay.
is here.
If you could come up, I guess I just wanted to ask the same question, that's all, you know, kind of the bottom line piece, or is MinDOT comfortable with what's being proposed, and,
Yeah, I believe you saw us go through the review for the intersection, because that's what 15
Yeah.
was MinDOT's concerns.
yeah,
It is close, so that's why they asked more questions, and then you saw during the staff working through, trying to make sure that we looked at extreme situations to make sure we really understood that situation. And Leaf did a good job of bringing those scenarios forward and the data collected and seeing that it wouldn't lock up, I think is some terms that you used and stuff.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't affect 15. And we also looked at 15 and some of those same things about what is that corridor gonna do? And what's that signal? But we view that signal improvement as a significant improvement to the 15 corridor. So that should help us. We'd really like to see that going forward and stuff, so.
and then, you know, we've talked, right, Kent, that if this does back up, well, maybe we change the timing a little bit. Is that something that MinDOT would really consider in light of the justification? Like if
timing.
it's, like if it backs up, right, there's loop
Yeah, I
detectors
think
and,
the conversations that have been, it's a completely new program. So MinDOT will be reprogramming this signal system. It won't behave like it behaves today.
yep, I understand
But
that.
I hear what you're saying. I think what's happening today, honestly, Steve, and we've talked about this, how that is set up and the timing and the loop detection and such doesn't fully account for the traffic that's occurring, like I mentioned earlier, on the South Grade Road legs. So, no, I believe there, in the end, that'll function much better, that the traffic on South Grade Road will be more accounted for from a signal operations standpoint. Can they do something differently? I think so. Honestly, you look at the counts, the west leg, count-wise, is very close to the north-south legs of Highway 15. So we do have to balance that from a traffic standpoint, and I believe MinDOT realizes that, and that'll be accounted for in the operations of it.
Yeah, so this improvement allows us a lot more flexibility to adjust the timing and the connections of what we're gonna do to make the traffic flow. And you're gonna see MinDOT in the future also look at trying to interconnect all of our signals as we get the funds and resources to make them so that you can have a little bit smarter signal system and keep the traffic flows and movements going through there. So that is our future.
So it's gonna be green from Denver all the way to Washington at,
When your car
For
goes,
one car going this way, not the other cars coming this way then. So there's a balance in that, yeah.
And that's likewise for downtown going into next year. The existing signal systems downtown aren't interconnected at this point in time, but will be in the future.
so what you're saying though is that there's opportunities to make adjustments in the future if need be.
Yeah, it gives us a lot more flexibility to make those adjustments with this improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Honestly, they don't want to touch the signal and the controls that are out there today is my understanding from a.
Well, I meant
You know,
in the future
so
when this all gets in
Like Todd
place.
said, there's a lot more capability there to be had, and I think willingness from MinDOT staff, you know, to actually go out there and make adjustments.
The technology has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. And a lot of our systems are 25 years old, so they're not capable of replacing motherboards on them and stuff, so.
All right, thanks,
Okay,
gentlemen.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we have two resolutions under there. Resolution number 15082, resolution adopting assessments, and resolution number 15083, resolution accepting bids and awarding contract.
Do you want those together, or do you want them
We
separate?
can do them
you can do them together if you can, if you would like.
Make a motion to approve both of them together.
I'll second.
Just had one question on an assessment. There's a dual one or duplicate with Cashways Coburn. Is that just that they're splitting those costs, or what does that mean?
Well, they have multiple parcels, but we're also mailing it to the store and their corporate headquarters, so.
Yeah, it was the same numbers but it said duplicates and
Yeah,
different colors.
that's just from a mailing list standpoint. Yeah, we're
Okay.
sending it here and we're sending it to St. Cloud.
Thank you.
Yep.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve both resolutions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
Kent. We have revision to the city cell phone use policy.
Mayor and council, as was discussed previously with Chief Gifferson, there's obviously a new law that goes into effect August 1st regarding hands-free legislation. And so to prepare at least our staff for that change in legislation, we did make some updates and revisions to the city cell phone use policy. And so we've got those in front of the council, proposed changes for your consideration tonight. Really, it's just, like I said, getting us a position to prepare us for the legislation that's coming forward.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Steve to approve this revision to the city cell phone use policy. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have minutes from, and reports from committees, boards, or commissions. The library board minutes from May 20th, 2019. Hutchinson Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board minutes from June 18th, 2019. The City of Hutchinson Financial Report and Investment Report for June of 2019. Planning Commission minutes from June 18th, 2019. Chief Gifferson, you have anything for us tonight?
Just one thing further, I just want to let you guys know that our Facebook page for the police department is now up and running, so I would invite you to take a look at that, and any feedback is welcome.
All right, thank you. Karen?
Two items quickly on the mosquito control front. Talking to John, we're going to extend our treatment season through August 21st, so counts are up in our traps. Obviously people have been outside lately, realize what's going on, so yeah, we'll keep it going. We have a healthy reserve fund on that front, you know, savings in past years, so.
I was out on the trail and I stopped a few times and
Just
it's
walked
a
or
lot
what?
nicer in town. That was unbelievable.
You didn't know you could ride that fast?
Definitely good to keep riding.
They are bad, you know.
No doubt. So we'll keep that going. Otherwise, just wanted to mention on the Main Street Highway 15 front, you might hear about this. Chad's probably been contacted, I imagine already, but they are going to be doing another round of building inspections through MnDOT's consultant. So it's really going through the basements and looking at foundations again and some follow-up inspections based on what they found. Initially, MnDOT's at this point developing their project specifications really to account for construction vibration impacts and the potential of those. So they want to have the consultant reevaluate what's there, identify any potential trouble spots. I believe based on the initial inspections, Hutchinson is sitting pretty well in comparison to other communities. You know, we've heard quite a bit about Litchfield where a lot of the foundations are, some are older and there's a lot of old boulder type foundations. Fieldstone, exactly. Yep. So, yep, they're gonna be contacting property owners and going through and take another look. Sounds like the end of July, early August here.
They just do more protection and shoring up and stuff because they still got to do the work, right?
Yeah, well, what they do primarily, they identify potential risk areas from, you know, a private property standpoint, but then they also analyze based on the existing soils out there and the existing roadway section, what sort of vibration is happening today when the large you know, semi-tractor trailer goes by at 35 miles an hour. You know, and then they develop a threshold that's reflected in the project documents, in essence, the contract then. And it basically, in simple terms, it tells the contractor, if you go, you have to monitor yourself and have, you know, they usually hire some sort of consultant to do that for them and provide documentation to the state that says they're not exceeding that or some level beyond the existing condition. And then if they do, basically, they take on the risk of their operations impacting the adjacent businesses. So it's really a risk transfer mechanism between the state and their contractor. That's it.
Thanks, Kent. Mr. Sabora?
I don't have anything tonight.
Alrighty. Dave's not here. Oh, all right, Steve?
Just two, two things I was gonna ask about, and I don't know what to call them, but those little blowouts on the road, like, you know, where the top layer, but I saw the crews are out now actually
They are.
trying to address those.
Yeah, Second and Dale primarily. Yeah, it's an issue happening across the state, and a lot of suburbs, and the metro area have been dealing with it more so, and a lot of debate going on about the bituminous mixes that were utilized at a certain point of time, and how they behave underneath a seal coat application. And, I mean, this has hit communities like Brooklyn Park and Woodbury. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happened there to their roadways and the magnitude of it. Primarily, we're seeing it on Second and Dale, which was paved in the early 2000s, 2003, I believe. And that's about that time period of these mixes that are somewhat suspect to basically to a seal coat application and the polymers that are within that seal coat oil. So, yeah, I think we're fortunate. That's, I think, about the only spot we're seeing it to a large degree in town. And John's, I think, has a good fix. It's going to be a Band-Aid, but, you know, it's really a spot-specific fix. We'll see how that behaves, and then if we have to do something more extreme in the near future, possibly doing a full mill and then overlay, you know, and that's what some of these other communities have had to do.
Thanks. Yep. The only other thing, I was just wondering if anybody's heard about the Muddy Cow and they hope to get going?
I haven't heard any updated,
I heard August.
yeah,
Like-
so, but I know
Well,
they're,
August is right around the corner.
I know. I heard August, but
Yeah.
That's it,
Thanks,
thanks.
Steve. Chad?
I didn't have anything extra tonight.
Mary?
I don't have anything except I drive by that pool and it's certainly been busy with this hot weather, so it's good for everyone. That's it.
Had something for the chief, you were gonna have your event down at the memorial and a little rain, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we were rained out on Saturday.
Right.
We have not rescheduled it.
Okay, that's what I was wondering if they had.
Fortunately, we saw the forecast coming, so we waited to buy groceries until Saturday morning, so we didn't have extra costs associated with it.
Okay, so it'll be rescheduled though, right?
At this point, we haven't rescheduled it, and I'm not sure if we will. Just depends on how the weekends from now until fall.
Maybe next summer.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thanks. Matt?
just a couple things. I know I sent an email out, I think last week about budgets, so if you have anything, try to give that to me as we work on the preliminary, budgets. I know Steve and I have been involved with the planning process for the Blandon Leadership Program. Just kind of a heads up to Key and I, keeping a year out there. We're gonna start recruiting. We've already started the process of looking at that, but they'll start being recruitments of individuals for that program. That'll probably roll out this fall. And then we're looking at bringing in 4 companies in regards to our marketing and branding initiative. as finalists, and then I'll get that information out to the council as well, just so you have an idea of who we're looking to bring in for that, and that will wind up on a future council agenda, so. That's it for me.
I was gonna ask you about the survey, Matt.
Yep.
The
Yep, the survey has gone out, it should have got hit and, or it should have, it's gone out to at least all the suspected or the proposed property owners, so all 1,700 have been issued, and so residents should have received that or will be receiving it. I know I've had a couple phone calls regarding it, but just encourage the residents to fill that out and then return it. Like I said, we've used that information.
It's very helpful for us.
We use that to gauge the opinion of the public on our services and on some projects that we're looking at, and so just would encourage everyone, when you get that, to fill it out and turn in. We do use that information to make decisions, so.
We talked before, or it might be a good way to have some community engagement afterwards, have, you
Yeah.
know, on some of those findings, or try to dig down a little bit more to understand what some of those might be.
Exactly.
I know some that have already gotten it, filled it out, and returned it.
Yep.
So that's a good thing.
Yep.
All I have, well, a couple things maybe. Well, one is Orange Spectacular this weekend out at the fairgrounds, and just went out and visited those guys today. And they just want to thank the city for all the support that we give those guys, and to the police department. They, I know it's going to be a big tractor parade. They go, it's really neat because they hit the old folks' homes. So they'll go by Harmony River and Oaks and Pines, and they, Chief, why don't you tell us the route, just for people that will, you know, that maybe want to get out and view the parade.
Sure. Off the top of my head, so.
That's fine, that's fine, we'll get it close.
So we'll be leaving the fairgrounds, I believe that's at 6:30, again, off the top of my head.
And what day is that?
It's this Friday.
All right.
We'll leave the fairgrounds, and then we'll, let me see now. Out onto Century Avenue, past the Oaks and the Pines, to Dale Street, then to Linden. Then we'll proceed down Linden until we reach Main Street, and we'll take that small jog over to 7th Avenue. Then we'll head south on Jefferson, and at some point, we'll jog back to the west, and then at that point, we'll hit Harmony River. And then it concludes at Runnings. So it'll be a little bit of a finesse job trying to get across Main Street twice, but hopefully traffic will understand, and we'll do what we can.
I know everybody from Oaks and Pines and Harmony River, they always say the residents really appreciate getting to see the old tractors, because I'm an old farm kid and I'll stop and watch a tractor go by, I'll admit it. So.
Yeah, so it's no water carnival parade, but it's
Yeah,
probably about a half hour,
Yeah.
something to that effect.
all right, thank you. That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to adjourn.